Hey everybody, welcome to the Juliet Kamanga show. I hope you're all doing well and I hope you're having a good day. So today I've decided that I want to join my watch list together because I haven't done one since February as I was taking a bit of a break, and I was like, the best way to do it is to essentially call it my autumn watch list. Everything I watch from March, April and May. And yeah, I actually thought I hadn't watched that much stuff this month, but it turns out I have, and I honestly feel like I'm forgetting things, but it's okay. I mean, whatever. This is just so you know what I've been like watching, keeping myself up to. So how I want to do this, because it is a longer list, what I've done is try to describe the movie, not necessarily the movie, but to try to describe how I feel about the movie in a sense, in one sentence, and then a quick who do I recommend it to, so that it's not a long drawl thing about why I like it and what it's about and what I thought and all those different things. And then I've decided that I'm probably gonna try review one of the movies I've watched within a month in a like longer video talking about how I feel about but just imagine it's still a monthly watch list, okay? Just imagine, guys. Okay, guys, sit back, relax, get a cup of coffee or tea or a drink and just relax and yeah, hear me out. March was my Oscar-ish month. I didn't only watch Oscar films, but a lot of the films here were on the best picture list, so that is why. That is why. Okay, cool. So the first film is Women Talking, a film that helps you understand what freedom versus fear looks like in different people depending on how they look at a situation. And I think I would recommend this to people who like films where it's very conversational based, people who don't mind deep topics, trigger warning for abuse and the R word. Next up is Tar, a big understanding of creating strides in art and being a problematic person at the same time. This kind of looks like cancel culture, so people who are interested in that kind of conversation in a more intellectual way, I definitely think this is for you. Next up is All Is Quiet on the Western Front, and I described it as a true depiction of what war does to soldiers and how quickly it ruins their lives. I definitely recommend this to people who are not pro-war. Like if you're anti-war, I think this is a very good film for you. Next up is Top Gun Maverick. I described it as a story redeemer of the first film due to better storytelling and better technology. I think that it was done well, and I think anyone who loves Tom Cruise films, anyone who likes action films, and anyone who liked Top Gun in the first place would definitely enjoy this film. Next up, Elvis, a hyper-sensational, sad depiction of an exploited artist. Yeah, that is the best way I can describe this film, and I recommend it to people who like biopics and people who want to know the story of Elvis from a particular perspective. After Sun I would describe as a bonding holiday trip with a father who is trying and a daughter who loves him but knows that he's not necessarily alright. People who love movies that are kind of sad, slow paced, family based and kind of realistic, I definitely think this is for you. Indie film lovers too. Next up is The Whale, a play turned film that will have you understand someone's desperate attempt to be better to someone they love. This film is heart-wrenching, so if you like heart-wrenching films, you want to see Brendan Fraser's comeback, and you like plays, this is definitely for you. Next up we have Don't Worry Darling, a film with an amazing concept that was created by the wrong people. I'm definitely going to talk more about this film in a different video, but I think that if you don't really care for like the technical aspects of film and you just want to watch a story that you think is interesting, I definitely think this one is for you. Okay, next up we have No Country for Old Men, a brilliant take on what happens when you steal shit that does not belong to you. It is a brilliant movie. I definitely understand why everyone hypes it up and why Javier Bardem won an Oscar for it. He did amazingly. And I definitely recommend this for people who love, a good action, slow-paced thriller, in the good sense of the word thriller, not thriller like as if you think it's horror. I think it's amazing. It's very thrilling. Okay, next up is Turning Red, a film that looks at puberty, cultural gaps, and what happens when you don't allow your child to be themselves. A very typical coming of age story. I think lots of people who enjoy good coming of age stories will definitely enjoy this one. People who love a very beautiful animated story will definitely love this one, and of course kids. Next up, the Bob's Burgers movie, a cute depiction of the Belcher family that aligns with season 13 more than the first few seasons. I definitely think that you need to watch later seasons to definitely understand the stylistic change. If you haven't watched Bob's Burgers since like season 8, you might be a bit confused on the change of pace. So I think definitely watch the later seasons so you understand. Next up, I rewatched Get Smart, The comedy is still hilarious and still holds despite some problematics that, early 2000s joke. I still think it's still good. It's not like one of those where you cringe so much you want to die. So definitely check it out if you're a Steve Carell fan and if you like a good action comedy and if you want to see Dwayne The Rock Johnson with like hair. Next up is Fireheart, an animation that I watched, similar to She's the Man but for firefighters and animated. I definitely think it's for kids and kids at heart, very like chilled. It's a B grade animation, not in a bad way. I mean, it's really lovely to see, smaller companies making animations. Next up is Luck. When you try change your fate for the right reason instead of accepting how life really is. Again, I think this is very much a very like B grade, kids of heart, kid animation, but it's lovely to watch things from, things that are on Disney and Pixar all the time and DreamWorks. Okay, in April, I tried to watch as many new things as I could. I was just trying to have a very chilled month. It was the month of depression, but also my birthday, so it was interesting. But yeah, here's what I watched and how I described it. First up, I watched Dog, two broken war soldiers on a road trip of healing. It's got Channing Tatum featuring a dog. So yeah, it's got like funny aspects to it, but it's mostly drama, and I definitely would, if you like a very nice healing film, I think this is for you. Girl Picture. It's a foreign language film, a film that explores two amazing friends trying to realize themselves in different ways. I think they did a great job with this film, and honestly, I recommend it to people who love indie films, foreign language films. Just watch it. It's so good. Next up, we watched Megan, a highly anticipated film. When you try make a toy do a parent's job, do not trust AI, guys. And I recommend this to people who like Chucky but want, a bit of less humor, but, like that concept around Chucky. I think you'll definitely like this one too. Next up is Babylon. And I know the way I'm going to describe it, you're going to be like, the fuck? But I kind of stole this from someone else on Letterboxd. And I describe it as a suicide letter to film because what the fuck? Yeah, it's crazy. The way I said The Fabelmans is a love letter, this is like a suicide letter just because of how chaotic it is. People who love chaotic films, people who like Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, and stuff like that, like people who like the Hollywood story, definitely watch this. I do have some feelings about this film, but I definitely want to do a separate video on it just because, yeah. Maybe I can tell you real quick, I don't like the costume design because they didn't stick to the time. I don't understand why they didn't do it, but someone did a really nice video on how that affected the story, so I definitely think I'll link it so you can check her out. Next up, Ghost in the Shell. Obviously the original one, not the live action one. I would describe it as a 90s anime that I've become obsessed with and understand why people are pissed with the live action. It's so good. Anyone who loves 80s and 90s anime, because I think that's the best way to describe it, is this is for you. It's so cool. It's such a fucking cool film. Next up is Goodbye Dragon Inn, a film where nothing happens for like 3 hours. Very experimental, like literally nothing happens, but it is actually quite funny. It's just that it's so slow and nothing happens. It's so interesting. I think anyone who likes experimental films, definitely check this out. You might be like, what the fuck's going on? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Next up is Ponyo. Two obsessed kids love each other so much and are willing to do anything for each other. If you love Studio Ghibli, I've still not learned how to pronounce the name. Definitely check it out. It's so cute. It is such a freaking cute film. Anyone who just wants to feel happy in their heart, definitely check it out. Next up is Good Will Hunting. I know I only watched it now, don't judge me. Alright, so Good Will Hunting, a story about a second chance in allowing yourself to want more. People who love really good storytelling will definitely love this. People who love Robin Williams will definitely love this. There's a beautiful monologue in this film and I'm obsessed with it. Okay, next up is Rye Lane. I love this film so much. Rye Lane I would describe as a lovely story about two chaotic people finding each other during their worst times and making it better. I absolutely love this film. It is so good. Anyone who likes the concept behind Before the Sunrise, Before the Sunset, definitely check this out. It is so beautiful and it's black and it's English and I love British films. So if you love British films and you love that, chewing gum chaos essentially, then yeah. Next up we have Lady Bird. I had to rewatch it because I'm going to be honest with everyone here, I did not like it the first time. I'm sorry, but now I like it a lot. I really, really like it a lot. And I would describe it as a bratty teenager and her overbearing mother trying to understand each other. And I think it is an absolutely beautiful film. And anyone who's a fan of Greta Gerwig, definitely check this out. Next up is Shiva Baby, another new favorite of mine. I'm obsessed with it. A hilarious and chaotic story about a young Jewish girl who keeps screwing up. Her screw-ups come through to get confronted, essentially. If you really like a chaotic story about being in your 20s, I definitely think this is for you. Based on one event, it's for you. And I just think it is so well written and well directed. It's just gorgeous. Next up we have Booksmart, directed by Olivia Wilde, who somehow also did, Don't Worry Darling. It's so shocking because she did a great job here. And this story follows two friends who realize they spent their high school years behind books instead of enjoying their youth. I think this is such a fun comedy about, just thinking you know it all, but you don't. And I recommend it to anyone who likes stuff like that. Next up is Wakanda Forever. I finally watched it, and I describe it as a well done film about grief and choice that did better than the first one and honored the friend that they lost. I think that they did such a good job at honoring Chadwick's memory, and I think it was beautifully done. Ryan Coogler has learned a lot since the first film that he did, and I'm very proud of what he created, and I definitely think that they did a good job. And this is not to say anything bad about the first one, it's just an improvement, which is what you want. So they did an absolutely beautiful job. Next up we have Rush Hour. I had to rewatch it because it's been years, and a comedy that still holds up and gave me a sense of the action comedy genre that I missed. I miss action comedies like this. It is so funny, and Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan's chemistry is unmatched. So yeah, anyone who loves action comedies, this is for you. Next up I watched The Woman King, which I described as a story that will have you fall in love with almost every soldier and realize that strength and emotion are synonymous. I think it was beautifully done. Everyone did a great job. Like from the crew, the cast, they did beautifully, and not just because I know some of that crew, but shout out to y'all. But I just think that they did such a beautiful job of planning this film. It was gorgeous, and it had such a deep story, like background story to it. I definitely think everyone should watch it. I had to watch Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind again, and I would describe it as you can't run away from what's meant to be, essentially. It is such a good film. If you just have to watch it. The technologies that they had from 2006 and were able to achieve a lot of the things they did were amazing. Not like we were dying in 2006 and it was like the 50s, but I think that a lot of the stuff they did was amazing. So please check it out if you love a good chaotic romance story, essentially, and you want to laugh. Next up is 8th grade. Do you remember being a 14-year-old girl trying to figure their life out? This is 8th grade. It is so cringy and so perfect. I think it's such a great film. Next up I watched To the Bone, and I would describe this as eating disorders are not such a black and white thing, and I think this film allowed us to see that. It is big trigger warning if you have an eating disorder or have had one or know someone with one. It can be very traumatizing, but I think they did such a good job with this film, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to learn a bit more about the thought processes behind people who have eating disorders, so you can understand it's not so black and white and it doesn't always look the same, and how scary it can be for the people themselves. Next up we have Atomic Blonde, and I said gay action, betrayal, and Charlize Theron. It is so good. I just love this film so much, and there's a long take that they did that is just amazing, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm really obsessed with that action sequence. It's gorgeous, and Charlize freaking killed it. She is just gorgeous, and she works so hard. I'm so proud of her because she's South African, so shout out. Next up we have Bridget Jones' Diary. I had to rewatch it. A story about a 30-year-old woman, and this should have warned us about the fact that we could not have our shit together at this young age. I think that Bridget Jones really encapsulates what it feels like to be in your 20s and 30s in this world. You can't be perfect, and there's no reason you should try to be, and this film is so chaotic. My one thing with this film is that everyone tried to create this idea that Bridget Jones was fat, and I do understand because Bridget Jones and I have the same body type, and it's sad because I think it created a lot of eating problems within the world, and it's messed up. So yeah, there is that thing where she calls herself fat a lot when she's not, so it's just crazy. Anyway, but yeah, early 2000s. Next up we have The Half of It, and I described it as a beautifully crafted film about discovering love, yourself, and the people around you. It is so well crafted. This film is beautiful. The main actress is gorgeous. I love her so much. Oh my god, I'm obsessed. I swear to god, I'm obsessed with her. She's so cool, and I think they did a very good job at not being biphobic, guys. I know this is crazy, but really they did such a good job at that, and it's such a big thing I have about TV shows, so I'm happy that they did a good job. Next up, we have 21 and 22 Jump Street. I'm just gonna put them together, and it's a chaotic duology that follows two cops undercover being dumbasses. I think it's just still hilarious. It is so funny, guys. It is ridiculously funny. Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, we didn't know we needed it, but we did. And I think that if you loved it before, you're probably still gonna love it, or maybe even appreciate it a bit more now. It is just chef's kiss. Okay, next up we have After Yang, a story that uncovers whether AI beings can think, create memories, and perhaps have feelings. I think this was such an interesting story. They didn't have to make it overly dramatic, because a lot of AI stories follow like AI trying to murder us. So it was very interesting to see a concept that focused on AI. I think like a different way humans can ruin AI or create things that they shouldn't be created in this very interesting way. So yeah. Next up we have The Matrix. Had to rewatch it the other day. A film that warns us about exactly what's happening now in our lives. And also it's such an amazing concept for its time. I think Matrix will always be a classic. It still holds up really well, and I understand why our film school kept drilling it into our heads, but it is a fantastic story, and in a fantastic like first film for the amazing, I'm gonna call it a trilogy because I don't recognize number 4. And the last film that I watched this month is called A Killing of a Sacred Deer. I had to rewatch it. A filmic depiction of an eye for an eye, but make it Yorgos Lanthimos. I hope I said his name right. I know I didn't. I swear to God, I suck at surnames. I don't know what it is, and I feel like, like those white people who can't pronounce any name. Anyway, but guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed everything I watched. I think it was really amazing. I know I'm missing something, and it's going to bother me for so long, but it's my own fault. I usually update my letterbox the minute I'm done watching a movie, but this month, I kind of, like 10 days later, I was like, oh shit, I haven't updated this thing. It looks like I watched nothing, bruh. But yeah, so far this year, I've been having such a good time with all the films I'm watching. Honestly, I think there are only like 3 films this year that I'm like, probably never gonna watch that again. But yeah, otherwise everything has been really good, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I've actually kept it short enough. I'm really proud of myself. I'm really excited for what's to come this June. It is Pride Month, so I definitely want to try keep things in that category of Pride Month vibes. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I hope you had a beautiful one, and see you in the next one. Bye.